The underestimated species word count. 982, the Galactic Council chamber stretched across 3 kilometers of polished obsidian, its vaulted ceiling studded with holographic stars representing the 800 civilized worlds. Ambassador Talia Reeves stood alone at the speaker's podium, her dark suit a stark contrast against the shimmering robes of the alien delegates who surrounded her in tiered seating. She could feel their contempt radiating like heat from a dying star. The humans had been granted membership only 5 cycles ago, a courtesy extended more from curiosity than respect. To the ancient races of the galaxy, humanity was nothing more than an infant species playing at politics while lacking the strength to enforce their will. High Chancellor Vexthor of the Krillian Empire rose from his elevated throne, his forearms spread wide in a gesture of theatrical disdain. His species had conquered 40 star systems before humans had even discovered fire. "The motion before this council is clear," he announced, his voice resonating through translation matrices that hummed in the air. "The Terran Federation requests military support in defending the Outer Rim colonies from Ja'Kari aggression. My response is equally clear, no." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber like a wave crossing an ocean. The Ja'Kari were a warrior race, brutal and efficient with a fleet that had reduced 3 civilizations to ash over the past century. Why would anyone waste resources defending humans who barely understood quantum propulsion? Talia's jaw tightened, but her voice remained steady when she spoke. "The Ja'Kari have already destroyed 2 of our colony worlds. 15 million civilians dead. They're using our territory as a staging ground for deeper incursions into council space. If we fall, you're next." She let the words hang in the air, watching for any flicker of concern among the delegates. She found none. The reptilian ambassador Sizreth of the Coiled Dominion laughed, a hissing sound that echoed off the chamber walls. "Your species has been spacefaring for barely 200 years. You lack the military tradition, the strategic heritage, the technological foundation to stand against true warriors. Perhaps this is natural selection at work." The chamber erupted in clicking, chirping, and rumbling sounds the translation software rendered as laughter. Talia felt her hands curl into fists at her sides, nails biting into her palms. She had been warned this would happen. The intelligence briefings had been explicit. The Galactic Council saw humanity as weak, disorganized, too sentimental to make the hard choices that war demanded. They had watched Earth's history, seen humanity's tendency toward mercy and restraint, and concluded that humans lacked the predatory instinct necessary for survival in a hostile galaxy. They were wrong, but Talia couldn't tell them that. "Not yet. We're withdrawing our request," she said quietly, her words cutting through the lingering amusement. Chancellor Vexthor's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You're abandoning your colonies?" Talia smiled, and there was something in that expression that made several nearby delegates shift uncomfortably in their seats. "No, Chancellor. We're simply recognizing that we'll have to handle this ourselves." She turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the sudden silence. Behind her, she heard Sireth mutter to his aide about the foolish pride of primitive species. 3 weeks later, the Ja'Kari Third Fleet arrived at the human colony of New Horizon, with 37 warships, enough firepower to crack a planet's crust. They expected panic, disorganized evacuation attempts, perhaps a few desperate civilian vessels making futile escape runs. What they found instead was Admiral Marcus Chen waiting for them with the entire Terran Second Fleet arranged in a defensive formation that shouldn't have been possible. The Ja'Kari had scouted human positions just 5 days ago. The nearest Terran military base had been 18 light-years away, and human vessels were slow, cumbersome things that required weeks to cross such distances. Yet here they were, 72 ships holding perfect formation between the Ja'Kari and the colony. Fleet Commander Kravex stared at the tactical display with growing confusion. "Impossible. Their technology..." His weapons officer interrupted with urgency creeping into his voice. "Commander, their ships are not registering on quantum detection grids. I'm reading their mass and energy signatures, but their quantum wake is negligible. It's as if they barely disturb spacetime at all." Before Kravex could process this information, Admiral Chen's face appeared on every view screen in the Ja'Kari fleet. He was an older human, weathered and calm, with gray threading through his dark hair and eyes that had seen too many battles. "This is Admiral Marcus Chen of the Terran Federation Navy. You are in violation of established territorial boundaries. Turn back now, or we will interpret your advance as an act of war." Kravex roared with laughter, his tusks gleaming in the bridge lighting. "You threaten us, human? We have conquered civilizations that built monuments while your ancestors lived in caves. Your vessels are inferior in every measurable way. What could you possibly—" He never finished the sentence. Chen's expression didn't change as he gave a single-word command. Fire. The space between the fleets erupted with light. But these weren't the slow-moving plasma torpedoes or crude missile salvos that the galaxy had come to expect from human weapons. These were precise, devastating beams of accelerated particles moving at 98% of light speed, guided by targeting systems that tracked individual ships through quantum probability fields. The Jacari shields, designed to deflect conventional weapons, might as well have been made of paper. 12 Jacari warships vanished from existence in the first 3 seconds. Their hulls simply ceased to be, matter converted to energy so quickly that their crews never even had time to scream. Kravix watched his tactical display dissolve into chaos as alarms shrieked throughout his flagship. "Return fire!" he bellowed. But his weapons officer was frozen in shock, staring at readings that made no sense. "Commander, their defensive fields are adapting. Our weapons are being deflected by probability manipulation. They're not blocking our shots, they're convincing the universe our shots never happened. This technology it's theoretical. It shouldn't exist." The revelation word count. 104. The Battle of New Horizon lasted 17 minutes. When it ended, the Jacari Third Fleet had lost 31 ships, with the survivors fleeing in whatever direction their damaged engines could carry them. The Terran Second Fleet suffered 0 casualties and sustained damage to exactly 4 vessels, all of which were already conducting repairs using fabrication technology that rebuilt hull plating in real time. The galaxy watched the battle footage in stunned silence. Every major civilization had monitoring stations in that sector, passive sensors that recorded everything for intelligence purposes. They all saw the same impossible thing. Humanity had been hiding its true capabilities. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened 18 hours after the battle concluded. This time, when Ambassador Talia Reeves entered the chamber, there was no laughter, no theatrical disdain. The delegates sat in their tiered seats like students awaiting judgment, and the air itself seemed to hum with tension. Chancellor Vexthor's forearms remained folded across his chest, but his voice had lost its earlier confidence. "Ambassador Reeves, the Council requires an explanation. The technology your species displayed in the recent engagement exceeds our understanding by significant margins. We need to know how you developed these capabilities in secret." Talia took her position at the podium, and this time she allowed herself a small smile. "We didn't develop them in secret, Chancellor. We developed them openly. You simply weren't paying attention." She activated the holographic display, and images flooded the air above the delegates' heads. Human research stations, universities, corporate laboratories, all working on projects that had seemed irrelevant or impractical to outside observers. While you dismissed us as primitive, we were solving problems you'd given up on centuries ago. Your civilizations reached technological plateaus and settled there, content with incremental improvements to established systems. You stopped asking fundamental questions about the nature of reality because you already had comfortable answers. The display shifted to show Einstein's equations, Hawking's theories, human quantum physicists whose names meant nothing to the assembled aliens but whose work had cracked open the secrets of the universe. Humans never stopped questioning. We never accepted that something was impossible just because it was difficult. When we joined the galactic community and saw your technology, we didn't try to copy it. We looked at the principles underlying it and asked ourselves if there were better approaches. Turns out there were. Ambassador Sreth of the Coiled Dominion rose from his seat, his scaled features twisted with something that might have been fear. "You've had this power for how long? Why did you pretend to be weak? What kind of species deceives the entire galaxy?" Talia's expression hardened. "The kind of species that learns from experience. Earth has a long history of what happens when powerful civilizations encounter weaker ones. The weak get exploited, enslaved, or exterminated. We knew that if we revealed our capabilities too early, before we had enough strength to defend ourselves completely, some of you would see us as a threat to be eliminated. So we kept our heads down, acted harmless, and built up our defenses where you wouldn't look, in pure research and theoretical science." She paused, letting her words sink in before continuing. "We also didn't want to be the aggressive newcomers that everyone fears. We hoped we could prove ourselves through diplomacy and cooperation first. That's why we asked for your help against the Jacari. We were giving you a chance to be our allies before we showed our teeth." The chamber fell into contemplative silence. High Chancellor Vexthor finally spoke, and his voice carried a weight of grudging respect. "What happens now, Ambassador? You've demonstrated superior military technology. You could conquer significant portions of council space if you chose to." Talia shook her head firmly. "Conquest isn't our goal. Never has been. Humans learned a long time ago that empires built on subjugation eventually collapse from within. We want what we've always wanted: peaceful coexistence, mutual trade, and the freedom to explore the universe without constantly watching our backs." She gestured to the holographic display, which now showed reconstruction efforts on the devastated human colonies. "The Jacari attacked us because they thought we were easy prey. We defended ourselves with overwhelming force because we needed to send a message to anyone else who might be considering similar actions. That message is simple: humanity will not be victims." Admiral Chen appeared via holographic transmission, standing beside Talia at the podium. His weathered face was calm, but his eyes held an intensity that made several delegates uncomfortable. "I've been authorized by the Terran Federation government to extend an offer to the Galactic Council. We're willing to share certain technological advances, particularly in the fields of defensive systems and medical science. In return, we want full voting rights in council decisions, mutual defense treaties, and recognition that human territory is inviolable." The Admiral's voice dropped to something quieter, but infinitely more dangerous. "What we will not accept is being patronized, dismissed, or attacked. The next civilization that tests humanity's resolve won't receive a warning shot. They'll receive the full weight of our military capabilities, and they'll learn why you should never underestimate a species that clawed its way up from a death world and refused to quit when the universe said no." The vote took less than an hour. The Galactic Council granted every human request with near unanimous approval. Only the Jacari Empire's representative abstained. But since their government was currently in chaos after losing an entire fleet to a supposedly inferior species, nobody paid much attention to their protest. As the session concluded and delegates began filing out in clusters of confused conversation, Chancellor Vexthor approached Talia and Admiral Chen with slow, deliberate steps. "I underestimated your species, Ambassador. We all did. That was a mistake we won't repeat." Talia extended her hand in the human gesture of respect, and after a moment's hesitation, Vexthor clasped it with one of his 4 hands. "We don't want to be feared, Chancellor. We want to be respected." "There's a difference." Chen nodded in agreement. "Fear breeds resentment and eventually rebellion. Respect breeds cooperation. We've seen enough war in our history to know which one leads to a better future." As they left the council chamber together, Talia looked up at the holographic stars representing 800 civilized worlds. Soon there would be 801, and for the first time since humanity had ventured into space, they would stand among them as equals, not because they had begged for acceptance, not because they had conquered their way to prominence, but because they had quietly, patiently, and brilliantly proven that human determination was more powerful than any weapon the galaxy had ever seen. The message spread through council space within days. Humanity wasn't the weak, sentimental species everyone had assumed. They were patient, strategic, and absolutely relentless when defending what they valued. And now that the galaxy knew what humans were truly capable of, everything had changed. The underestimated species had finally shown its hand, and the universe would never look at them the same way again.